Welcome to an all new episode of Catching Flies with Ranveer. And this week I have a rather unique guest from a very unique industry, but I'm very excited to be speaking with him. It is Executive Deputy Director, yeah, of Krish Creations, Mr. Mihir Patel. How are you today, Mihir?
I'm great, Ranbir. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast. It's actually something on my bucket list that I've wanted to do for so long was to record a podcast and to do it here, my first debut. I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on. I'm really happy that you decided to volunteer your time and you decided to, come and share some of your insights from a very unique industry, which, I'm really excited to learn more about. So obviously we know each other very well, but, for those who are listening that might not know who you are, why don't you, introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit about you?
Sure. As you said, I am the executive deputy director of Chris Creations. Our company wholesales in precious stones, mainly in rubies and sapphires. We do both single stones and calibration, so like the more smaller sizes. Our range is mainly between like the medium to high end stones. We cater more towards the B2B market, so we sell to either traders or other wholesalers or even jewelers. And then the jewelers will use our stones to
Hmm.
put it into their jewelry and send it to them and sell it to the end users.
Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, I'm quite curious. How does someone get into the jewelry and gemstones industry? Because I think you know traditionally speaking or stereotypically speaking, most of the people that I know in this industry are women. You know, so how do you fall into this industry and how did you get interested in it?
So it all started with my dad. He is a trader as just like I am. He started the company Chris Creations. He learned it from his father-in-law and his father, like through that industry. So it is more of a family-oriented business. So
Hmm.
as a result, that's how I started to join in because I thought there was something for me to give some input and to give some more of my own analysis on the industry and maybe put a bit more of my own flavor and spin to it so I can bring in more of like a modern audience into this industry.
Yeah. Okay. So what is that? Okay. So what exactly does a spin on gems and jewelry mean? Because you know from what I can tell, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? Like gems, you have to mine them, and a ruby is a ruby, a sapphire is a sapphire, an emerald's an emerald, and you just got to market it to people who can afford it, first of all, but also who have a penchant for these things. So, what exactly does putting a spin on it mean?
Question. So for me, like putting a spin is just like how can I cater my stones to like a broader audience? So like you said, like a ruby is a ruby and a sapphire is a sapphire. You're not wrong about that. And there is it's a very old industry where there are so many different traditions that people use. There's a lot of different ways people buy, which is very, very old school. So when I say putting a spin to it,
Hmm.
I want to sort of break the boundaries when it comes to selling and promoting like my products to like a more general mainstream
Mm.
market because that is something that is lacking in our industry since it is a very I quote archaic industry where it's very old school. There's a lot of old mentalities with it.
Yeah.
So for me, putting a spin to it would be making my own methods of either selling or buying and trying to promote my product in a more social media manner or even promoting it to a more modern audience.
Okay. Sounds quite interesting. Maybe we can have an industry like gem tech or something where people sell jewelry on an app, or they use AI to kind of like customize what they want and what kind of stones they're looking for and stuff. I think there's an industry there. Who knows? You know?
There is an industry there actually in beer. So there are people who are already doing this at a smaller scale, you could say. There are certain jewelry companies that will, sell online where they can use like AR features to like, show
Mm-hmm.
like their customer exactly like what the jewelry would look like or how it would be set into like their setting, how would it fit onto like their wrist
Wow.
or like their earrings just through like their phone. So that is one already advancement in this industry that is really interesting. And right now selling online for like gemstones is another factor that is really interesting.
Hmm.
There are quite a few companies that are trying to push for that initiative, but there are a lot of roadblocks ahead because this industry is a lot of high end goods and it's a very high commodity. So you are spending a lot of money
Yes.
into this, like just buying the product itself. So it's a huge risk to buy online. So that is one of the biggest roadblocks is just the trust factor. And then there's of course like
Yeah.
photography, like how do you photo a stone. Mainly for color stones, the biggest issue is color because color always comes first in when you're buying colored stones.
Yes.
So when there are a lot of, not a lot, but there are quite a few companies I know that I don't want to say mislead, but they definitely use like enhancements on like Photoshop or
Yes.
photo editing just to make their
Yeah.
stones look crystal clear. But then when you actually see the stone in real life, it looks
Right.
nothing like the product. So again, that comes to the level of trust. You need to be able to trust the buyer. You need to trust your vendor in order to
Mm.
complete a purchase online. I would never buy a stone online if I never trusted the company or if I didn't know who the company was. So that is one of the
Right.
roadblocks that is coming into this tech industry for gemstones and jewelry. But it's a very
Yeah.
fascinating part of the industry that is growing consistently. There's always like recent developments in technology to help um, people like me who sell gemstones to promote my stones in a much more ethical and better way to then sell it to my my wholesaler or to like another end user so they can use those like my stone for like their settings.
Right, right. No, that's it's interesting to see. I mean, tech is kind of getting into, seeping into every and any industry today. And, gemstones and gem trading is something that goes back very far in history, right? I mean, Marco Polo was writing about it when he was going along the Silk Road, right, back in the 1200s, and
Yeah,
it's such an ancient practice of trading gems, and I think it's something that I don't know, maybe should stay exclusive, maybe not. But one thing I'm kind of interested to gauge from you is this whole idea of synthetic products, right? Because obviously now you've got synthetic gems, you've got synthetic diamonds, and obviously real diamonds, real gems are only for the lucky few in the world who can afford it, and that's great for them. But for the mass market audience, maybe for people who still want those sparkles on a night out, this synthetic gems and synthetic diamonds industry is coming in as well. So, what's your take on that?
very good question, Ranveer. And you're right, it is becoming a huge industry, the idea of synthetic diamonds and synthetic color stones. For synthetic colored stones, I will touch on that first. It's not as big of an industry currently because the technology has not caught up to like the natural side. Because the biggest issue for synthetic color stones
Mm.
is the color itself. Because you can still achieve a similar like royal blue color or a pigeon blood. These are more terminology that people use in the industry. Um, you can get like the best of the best
Hmm.
color. But the problem is like with synthetics, you can also feel the difference and you can also tell the difference straight away because there are no inclusions or there's no, unique properties in that stone that can define it to be a natural gemstone. Now, on the other side, where it comes to natural diamonds versus synthetic diamonds, there's a bigger issue because synthetic diamonds has already caught up to the natural diamond section where no one can tell the difference between a synthetic versus a natural by the naked eye or even just by feeling it. You have to use machinery to then test and see if it is a synthetic or if it is a
Right.
natural. But there was a time, I would say maybe 10 years ago, when synthetics were first introduced, where no one knew about it, where people would, mix synthetic stones with natural stones in like a big parcel, and then they would sell it for, as a natural parcel. And that would be a huge problem because it's unethical. But of course you get a lot of profit out of it. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a huge issue that a lot of people were
Mm.
having trouble trying to succumb over. So as a result, synthetics have now become its own separate industry, or it caters to its own clientele, mainly
Okay.
our generation, like millennials and Gen Z, who do not, like you said, they just want the sparkles. They don't really necessarily care about the value. They just want to wear it for
Yeah.
show and wear it to like a night out and just look good. And there's nothing wrong with buying a synthetic diamond. My observation is if you're buying a synthetic diamond as an investment, it's the worst investment to make because there's an infinite number of supply for these stones and the prices are continuously dropping, which is the big issue for people who are
Yes.
selling these synthetic stones. On the flip side, if you're just buying a synthetic stone, like a synthetic diamond, just to wear for a night out or just to give to your significant other because you don't have the funds to buy a natural diamond, that is also acceptable. Like if you have, if you're comfortable with just buying a synthetic diamond. So there are two schools of thoughts
Yeah.
with this, but no one's right and no one's wrong. It's just what your beliefs are.
Yeah, yeah. I think, I can kind of agree with that. And, I understand. I mean, everybody is, born and brought up in their own way. And, you have your own socioeconomic status. And, sometimes there are girls out there who want to look good and who want to feel as though they're dressed up to the nines, right? So I think it's a good thing that this industry exists. And I think it's a pretty cool thing that, uh, you see a lot of people that are out there able to purchase and kind of get involved in this industry and make themselves look good. I think it's also empowering, for the women out there, like to look good and feel their best. So I think it's a great thing that the industry is coming in. But now I can kind of see how it's a very different distinction when you point out like investment for value and investment for entertainment and recreation. I think that's a very key
Yeah.
distinction as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
you know what also, Ranveer? There's also one more thing I wanted to mention, which was the idea of marketing for like these stones. Because I don't know if you know about this, but there was also like a huge issue with the natural diamond side where there was the whole blood diamond fiasco where people were so concerned
yeah,
about funding terrorism through diamonds because there was like a huge article and the movie that was released on Netflix where everyone just started having a big panic about like buying natural diamonds. So the synthetic diamonds then took over and they started marketing saying that they are a sustainable, ethical, good for the earth because they don't use mining per se. They use more of heat technology or renewable
yeah,
energy in those ways.
yeah,
So the idea of marketing towards that clientele is also a huge factor as to why synthetics are still a thing in this industry.
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense as well. And it's very interesting, like how blood diamonds and all these kinds of things still exist in today's world. It's sad to see and it's quite criminal to see, but I guess that's just how it is.
But Renvir, there is also a positive, which is there are companies who are very much ethical and they are trying their best to
Mm,
not but buy blood diamonds. There is so many legislation and there are so many like trade forms, like there's something called RJC, which is called Responsible Jewelry Council, where
hmm.
if you are a member of this council, that means you have gone through all their checks and balances by making sure that your supply chain does not include any blood diamonds or any sort of conflict stones. So
Okay.
there are checks and balances in place in this industry to make sure that they're not funding terrorism because I can't speak, I can speak for myself and I can speak for most of the companies that I work with. Like we're not in this industry to fund terrorism or, fund conflict stones.
Yes,
That's
of
not
course,
what
of
we're doing
course.
this for. Like we're doing this to, do a business, like to make money, like as any industry is. So
Yeah,
we do try our best to make sure that we know where our sources are from and we know where we're getting our stones. So there are checks and balances in place to ensure that
yeah.
this doesn't happen in the future.
Yeah. So actually, this is an interesting question then. So obviously, you have these checks and balances and these certifications and stuff, but like anything in life, I'm sure that these processes are not perfect, right? There are leaks, there are gaps, there are holes. You know,
Yeah.
what if by chance, not saying your company, but just any company in general who is well intentioned, what if by chance, a blood diamond or a blood jewel, blood gem comes through the system and goes on sale to these people? What happens then? Is that, bad for the name of the company? Is that a criminal offense? Like, how does that work?
So I can just say this just from like not from money. I haven't experienced this yet, but just from what I could, in my most educated guess, would be if you were in possession of like a conflict stone, but you didn't know about it, then
Mm,
you can't really blame yourself for that. But if you find out that your stone does have some like some degree of uncertainty about conflictness, then you have to go, talk to your supplier, or you have to figure out how to, maybe return the stone, or if you can find a way you could maybe report it and just see if there is some sort of like solution. Um, I would say right now, like I've not heard of any major cases of anyone going through like a blood diamond scandal in recent memory. But I know like there were a couple of companies that were in this kind of situation, and but they were cleared because they just had no idea, and like those checks and
right.
balances failed on their side. So as a result, they had to revamp their entire supply chain. They had to find maybe new sources, or they had to figure out a different way to get their material or like get their rough diamond from like a different source. So that would just be one of the checks that could happen.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. So let's pivot and talk a little bit on the travel side. So as far as I'm
Okay.
aware from as far as I'm aware from you, I hear that the gemstones industry also involves a certain degree of travel, right? You travel to do your exhibitions and your road shows and stuff like that. So what goes on at these things? Is it just like a convention hall, or is there something big and fancy? Like what kind of traveling is involved?
So there is a lot of traveling when it comes to jewelry and gemstone dealers because
Okay.
there are trade shows that happen all over the world. We're not just talking, Thailand and the US. Um, there are shows in Hong Kong, there are shows in China, there are shows in Miami, Argentina, Qatar, like all over the world. There are, different gems and jewelry trade shows.
Mm-hmm.
So for our company, we exhibited in eight different shows this year. Two were in the U.S. In Tucson, Arizona, and Las Vegas, Nevada. We
Mm-hmm.
exhibited in Bangkok for three different shows. One happened in February, one happened in April, and one happened in September. We also exhibit in Hong Kong, which is there are three shows we do in Hong Kong as well. One in February, one in June, and one in September.
Mm-hmm.
So there are so many different shows that we have to go to, and there are so many more that we want to continue in the future. So yes, there is a lot of traveling that is encompassed with this industry. Now, when it comes to trade shows, these usually happen in convention halls, or they will happen in like a hotel, like, in a proper ballroom, because it would be more safe and more secure. And there are, a ton of security involved because these are very high end stones. This isn't just,
Right.
$10, $20 stones. These could go up to like $1 million, $2 million. So you need to have that security in place. So the location and infrastructure is very, very important into having a successful show. When it comes to trade shows, people have booths where they will like either have one, two, four, six different booths, and they will just display like their product. And that's one of the best ways to market your company and also to, generate new clientele because the people that walk around these shows usually will be in our industry and they are either,
Okay.
jewelers or they might be other gemstone dealers. You may even meet like a collector who just likes to buy gemstones just for their own collection or even for an investment.
Wow.
So you may just meet some random people out of the blue. But honestly, it is the best way to meet new clientele and to market yourself. So yes, it is a lot of traveling, but it's the best way to market.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I could get to that point where I could just buy one for the heck of buying one. I think that would be quite nice as well. No. So,
You're well on
yeah.
your way, Ranveer. Keep working harder. You'll get there.
One day, I hope, let's see how
Yeah.
things will turn out. But yeah, so, okay, this sounds pretty interesting. So, what keeps you motivated to go through the motions of trade show after trade show, Bangkok, Hong Kong, United States on repeat? Like, what keeps you going?
What keeps me going? Move. Um, One, I mean, if we're going to be very, very honest, money, that definitely gets me going. I mean, it's when you see how lucrative the business is, you start to really appreciate what you have, and you can see
Yeah.
how much potential and growth there is in this industry.
Hmm.
But in all seriousness, also like another big reason is family, because this is a family business, and this is in the end this is my business. So if it fails, then it's on me. It's not on anyone else. It's not like I'm working in a corporate firm where if I mess up, like I'll just get fired and I can just get another job. Like instead, it's
Yeah.
like you know, if I fail in this industry, then I don't have anywhere else to go. So that, not that fear, but that just like that adrenaline of like pushing yourself
Yeah.
because you know that this is yours. That is something that keeps me going all the time.
Yeah. That
So
deep rooted
that would be like the
responsibility,
biggest
right? I
reason.
get it.
The
Yeah.
responsibility. You're right.
Yeah, it weighs down on you. I think it's quite important, especially when you're trying to build and grow your own business. And, it doesn't even matter what kind of business or what kind of venture it is. I think when you truly care about something you're working on, you have that sense of responsibility that weighs heavy. And, it's kind of important to where you're going, what you're visualizing, what you want for yourself, and what your end goals are, both short term and long term.
Yeah, that's true. And since my dad is also working in this company, like just seeing him and seeing how hard he's worked to get to where we are, that's also so
Hmm.
inspirational because he started from almost nothing and he's built up this company to where it is. So
Mm.
that's so inspiring to me, and that makes me feel like if he can do that and he's given me a platform, I have to do better to show that
Yeah.
I'm worthy to like take over this company in the future, or like I'm worthy enough to be in this industry. So that's another factor that weighs on my shoulders in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But at the same time, I'm sure that, working in a family business and having that sense of responsibility, that pressure can sometimes be a lot. Is that fair to say as well?
Yeah, I mean, family businesses have a very different dynamic than a corporate firm. Like, when you're in a corporate firm, it's you and your boss that has like that kind of dynamic, that interaction and like that chemistry. For me, it's me and my dad, and sometimes you have like a gray area where like yes, he's your boss, but he's also your dad. So,
Hmm.
and the same goes to him. It's like yes, he is like my son, but he's also like an employee slash business partner. So you have to figure out ways to keep it professional
Hmm.
and keep ourselves in check, like keep each other in check. And
Hmm.
no, I'm not going to even lie. Like there have been multiple, arguments we've had together, and multiple times where like we've disagreed on so many issues in this industry. But the one good thing I could say about my relationship with my father is we understand in the end we're just doing what's best for the company, and
Hmm.
we both love each other, like we both care about each other, and we just want to succeed. So I guess that's the one big um factor that keeps our relationship um as strong as it is that we know that the love is there and that we are just
Yeah.
trying to succeed. So there is no like malice between us. So that's something that's very interesting with running any family business.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about. I mean, it's definitely very unique, right? It's not like just a normal startup or a normal corporate. I mean, a family business can definitely turn into a corporate, but for those who are within that family itself, the dynamic will be different, even though the whole business in itself is a corporate. So, yeah, it's a very interesting
Exactly.
uh, insight. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and even though we have a family business and we have staff, one thing my dad and I do is that we don't even call our staff. We call them team members because they are a team in the end, and we run our company as if it's a team. Like everyone has their role, everyone has their position, everyone knows what they're going to do.
Yes.
And we are always there for each other. Like we're a very small company. Like when it comes to others, like we only have like 4 or 5 team members, like aside from my dad and I. So we, whatever their problems are our problems, just as our problems are also their problems. And that's how we work so well together is that
Yeah.
we're always
It's
there for
moving
each
like a
other and
unit.
we're always going to support each other. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're such a tight knit family almost. Like they are my family in the end. Like even though it's like a work family, they're still family to me. Like if they ever came up to me with an issue, I will always be there for them and I'll always want to, help them out with anything. Just like they
Hmm.
would for me. Like if I told them like, we're having some issues at work or we have to stay back late at night, they won't even hesitate. They'll be like, "Yep, let's get it done. Let's work on this. Let's make sure that everything is perfect, for the
Mm.
next day." So that is something that we're very privileged and lucky. I'm very privileged and lucky to say that.
Yeah, and that's what every company should be about, regardless of size or industry, right? It should be about your team. I think a lot of leaders and a lot of business owners, a lot of decision makers and C-suites don't realize today that they wouldn't be where they are unless there was a team, right? It's a team effort. You need to have people around you. A company
Exactly.
is not a company without employees, right? And some people lose sight of that, and that's a shame. So it's really nice to see that you're taking an approach that enables your staff to be treated like family team members, and you guys are moving as a unit. And it doesn't matter about the size, right? Like as long as you have that flow of working together, that's what's going to constitute success in the long run. At least that's the way I see it.
No, you're 100% right about that sentiment. Like, you know, my dad and I wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for our team members. Like, we know that just as well as anyone else. So, we don't treat them like our staff members. Like, we don't tell them, like, you're going to do your thing, we're going to do our thing. It's, we're going to help each other, we're going to collaborate, we're going to, do things together. And that's just how we always work. That's how we've always operated. Like, that's our philosophy. So, yeah, I wish more companies would do that, but for us, like we can only manage what we do, and this is how we work.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. It's good to see and good to hear. As I said, all
Yeah.
companies should strive to be that way. But yeah, let's pivot back now a little bit further than that. So, um, you are someone who decided to travel for a semester abroad during your education years, right? And
Yes,
some
I
of my
did.
audience, some of my audience members are still, doing their academics. Some of my audience members are still in school. So, I just want to have a bit of a small segment on that, and to talk about the the importance or the benefits, shall we say, of doing a semester abroad. So, why do you think that's necessary? Did that contribute, to who you are today? Did that contribute to your ability to characterize yourself and define your life in any kind of way?
Um, You know what, Ranveer? I'll be very honest. For my university, like I was required to do a study abroad because of my degree. Because
Okay,
I did a degree of international studies,
right.
with a concentration in political economy, and it's not like I was forced to do it. Like I was very happy to do a semester abroad. In fact, a lot of people in my major just did 1 week at like going to like Mexico or going to Granada and just doing like a 1 week like course. But I thought I wanted to do a semester abroad because I had this opportunity to spend 6 months abroad, like in a different country, or in my case a different continent, because I went to Barcelona for my semester abroad.
Hmm.
So I was so fascinated about the European um, like continent and like the whole European region because I had friends who studied in Europe, who studied in the UK, or who studied in Spain, or who studied in Ireland, and their experiences are so different to what I was experiencing in the US. So I was very fortunate to go to Barcelona, and when I went to Barcelona, like the days before, I had some personal issues that I was dealing with, and I,
Hmm.
was questioning like, should I even be going because I'm not feeling well mentally and also physically. But
Hmm.
I can say this now with all my heart that doing a semester abroad was one of the best decisions of my entire life. It was an experience I'll never forget. I met so many amazing people, like my roommates. I'm still in touch with them to this date. I have friends who I still talk to this day. Um, you know, I still get memories, like, 4 years ago, because it's now been 4 years since I've studied abroad. Like, I get on my Snapchat, like, 4 years ago, you were doing this, or you were at this place, you were traveling to this country.
Yeah.
And I was just there, like, wow, like, those memories will never ever leave will never leave me. And I've learned so much about myself during that semester abroad. I grew up, like, in a matter of 4 months. I grew up from what I was, just as a sophomore in
Yeah.
university, to then becoming so much more mature and just being more in control of myself,
Hmm.
understanding myself a lot better, and just being more open minded to so many different cultures. So yeah, that entire semester abroad is such a big benefit. And if any one of your audience members is thinking about doing a semester abroad, I 100% support it, and I would urge people to do it because it just opens your mind so much more than it would if you didn't do it.
Yeah. Awesome. So you heard it here first, guys. If you're thinking about traveling, spending some time abroad, whether it's semester abroad, gap year, whatever, do it. Just get out there, go see the world. It's important. It's character building. It's fun. You make memories. You make friends that last a lifetime. So, I totally concur with what my guest Mihir over here is saying. I think, having that knowledge of the world and doing so via immersion is something you cannot get in the classroom. You cannot get by just, going on watching YouTube or Netflix travel documentaries. Like, you got to get out there and get in the thick of it. So, yeah, I mean, I have to concur. I mean, I totally understand what you're talking about. I also like to travel a lot. So, I feel exactly the same way on many of those things that you've just mentioned there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's honestly like a life changing experience when you do like these, semester abroad or like traveling for like a longer period of time. You develop so much more than you would ever imagine. And the people you meet, like, I was very fortunate that I met so many amazing people, but I know everyone that's like studied abroad has always had the same sentiments that I've had, which is
Hmm.
I've met so many amazing, like, I've met so many of my friends there now, like, and we're still in touch and we still talk, and they've grown up together in that way. So yeah, I concur with everything you just said, and I will urge any of your audience members, go out there, travel, see the world.
Yeah, yeah. So before we wrap up the show, I have this tradition with all my guests where I allow them to ask me a question because I spend most of my time as the podcast host. So now I give my guests a chance to be the host. So is there anything you'd like to ask me?
Ooh, too much power in beer you've given me here. I gotta think a little bit. Gotta think.
Yeah,
Well, there is one question that I've always
yeah,
wanted to ask you, and for your viewers, like, who don't know, like, we've been friends for so long. Like, we've known each other since high school, and
yeah,
we've, grown up together. Like, I consider you like my brother. Like, honestly, like, I'm
yeah.
an only child, so my friends are my family, and you are 100% family to me.
Yeah.
So one question that I really wanted to ask was, you travel so much, Ranveer. Like, you
Mm,
always like go backpacking, and you always have like this mindset of like, just go out there, see the world, explore.
yeah.
What are some of the best travel tips that you could give to a younger generation, like, who wants to travel on a budget, and how can they maximize their time efficiently?
Hmm.
Like, if they only have, say, a weekend to travel, because when I was a semester abroad, like in Barcelona, I would travel on the weekends because I would be in
Right.
class during Monday to Thursday, but Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday, I was free. So I would travel during that time. But I always found it difficult to optimize my time to make sure that I
Yeah.
could do as much as I wanted to, but also not burn myself out. So what kind of tips could you give to your viewers on how to travel efficiently, and also just how to maximize your time?
Yeah. Sounds good. Um, so let me start with the second question. So I think, I have the same feeling as you and the same experience as you of traveling when I was in university and, doing so on the weekends or like on a Friday or a Monday or something. And my number one travel tip is make use of the red eyes, right? You're young, and my mantra at the time was you can sleep when you're dead. So I used to take the I used to take the 2 a.m. flights, the 3 a.m. flights, the 4 a.m. trains, 3 a.m. buses, overnight sleeper buses, and those are often the cheapest ones and also the emptiest ones. And it's like, well, you don't have much time, and you don't want to waste a day, so you don't have to waste a day. Just go in the night, right? And like I said, when you're young, all you need is a bit of coffee, 1 2 hours of sleep, on a bus or a train and you're good to go. And I
So true.
managed to, yeah, I managed to visit a lot of, let's say, higher priced countries that way. Like when I visited Basel in Switzerland, for example. As a backpacker, Switzerland is not the most ideal destination, but I took like a 1 a.m. train. I arrived in Basel at 6 a.m. before the sun had even come up, and I spent the whole day in Basel. And I took the 11 p.m. train back. And the next thing you know, I've seen the whole city. I've had breakfast, lunch, dinner, been to the outskirts, been to the part where the three countries converge, France, Germany, and Switzerland,
Okay.
been to the cathedral, all around because I maximized 16 or 17 hours in that small city. And honestly, it was a great time. And of course, when I came home the next day, I slept for like 12 hours. But there you go. So my advice would be maximize the red eyes. And I think generally speaking, for younger people who want to travel, it's very it's a very great time to do so. Even though travel prices and airlines and all that are capitalizing on higher costs by charging higher prices, there's still ways around that. So, for example, taking really, really long transits, right, is not only a very cheap option, but it's also a way to see two countries in one. So, I'll give you an example. Turkish Airlines today, right, as of 2023, is offering free tour of Istanbul if you have a transit of a certain length. So my
Oh,
advice
oh.
would, yeah, so my advice would be to, instead of just getting to your destination really quickly, right? Take that 8 hour transit, take that 10 hour transit, right? Next thing you know, you transit in Turkey, you can go and see Istanbul with a bus, transportation, entry visa, all
Oh,
included,
okay.
right? If you fly with Turkish Airlines, and then after that, head on to your destination. So many countries are doing that today. Taiwan is on that as well. Bahrain, Oman, all these countries, and like particularly in the Middle East where prices are high for the average backpacker, right? Take a 6 to 8 hour transit and spend the day in Sharjah, or spend the day in Muscat, or spend the day in Manama, Bahrain, right? And then head on to your next destination. You would have seen two countries in one, and you can continue on with your backpack and easy to be mobile. So that would be one thing. And I think for those who are traveling around Europe as well, and top travel tip for me would be to utilize all modes of your transport, right? Don't always get on the planes, get on the trains, get on the
Very
buses.
interesting.
Don't don't be afraid to stay in the hostels, right? I know it can be really daunting the first time you do it, but
Very true.
you
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh, it's daunting. I know. It's very daunting.
yeah. So yeah, once you do that, the first time it starts to become really like a habit. And now having done that for a couple of years and seeing the world, every continent, it's been the joy. And I wouldn't do it any other way. Even though I could maybe afford to stay on my own in a 3-star hotel or something, like I would still go and I would still pick that hostel, so that I can meet new friends, get myself immersed in local activities, have a great time, and just experience life because that's what travel should be all about, right? We learn the most, we grow the most during these times, and that's one thing I would really encourage anybody really when they're traveling to do that.
Those are some amazing tips, Ranbir. Like, the red eye. I personally, I hate the red eye. Like, I used to take
Yeah,
it
it's
whenever
not
I
for
would
everybody.
go. I know it's not for everyone. I used to take it when I was in the U.S. when I would travel, like, state to state. Those are painful, but they are the most cheap tickets and they're very efficient. Um, I love the idea of, like, taking the longer transit because so many people hate doing the longer transit because they get bored. They're like, what am I going to do for 4 or 5 hours? But if you take that 8 to 10 hour transit in some of these airports, like that's really interesting that you can actually go and do a tour around the city like that your airport is in, because you're basically killing two birds with one stone, where like you are going to go
Hmm.
to two different countries and you can explore both countries in a very efficient manner. So that's
Exactly.
something that's really interesting and that's really awesome. And the
Yeah, and it's
hostel
cheaper too.
tip.
It's cheaper
Sorry.
too. That's the best part. It's cheaper too. That's the
Oh
best part.
yeah, I would
So
assume so, because like you're only there for a couple of hours just for, so it wouldn't be too expensive.
yeah,
The hostel thing is really interesting, like because it is daunting. Like I know a lot when I did it in Barcelona, when I would travel around Europe, I was a little bit hesitant about doing a hostel, but when I saw the
yeah,
prices and my friends who I was traveling with were like, we have to do it a hostel, like get the experience. I'm like, okay,
yes,
fine. But I don't regret it. I actually enjoyed my hostel experiences. Almost all of them were safe. You met some really cool people along the way, and
hmm,
the places that I had picked were very centrally located. So those are really nice to just sit there and like explore the city in a very efficient manner, and then come back to your hostel because it's like in a very central location.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So benefits of travel are limitless, and I can only encourage people to get out and do it, no matter how old you are, or what socioeconomic background you come from. Just do what's right for you, do what's within your budget, and become a different person in the process. So
I echo
yeah,
all of those sentiments. All those sentiments, I echo all of them. Yes, you should travel. It really opens your eyes, and it doesn't matter what socioeconomic background you're from. You can always find a way to travel around the world. Maybe not so many different places, but just like maybe
yes,
three,
do
four
what's right for
countries is
you.
already more
Yeah,
than enough.
yes, exactly. Just do what's right for you, and
Yeah.
uh, any kind of experience in that sense is good experience. So yeah, with that, I am speaking to the deputy director of Krish Creation. And for those who want to know more about Krish Creations and where they can find you, what do you say to them?
So we do have an Instagram page that you can follow us, Krish_creations. There we also have a Facebook page, and you can search us up on Google as well. Like our website will be launching in a month's time. So hopefully when that comes out, you can follow us on our social media. Like on Instagram, I'll be announcing like the website launch over there. You can also DM us on Instagram, and we also have a link tree to like showcase all of our other social media platforms that we use. But yeah, that's the main ways you could see us. Other than that, you can meet us in trade shows. Again, follow us on Instagram for more details into where we're going to be exhibiting next. Yeah, that's where you can see us.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time again, Mihir. It was amazing to have this conversation with you.
The pleasure is all mine, Ranveer. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I had an amazing time, and hopefully your viewers have learned something about the jewelry and gems industry and also just about traveling in general.
Yeah, I hope so too. So thank you, Mihir. Have a good one.
Cheers. See you, Ranveer.
See you. See you.